What's up, YouTube family? Before we get started, just a quick reminder, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it helps out the show so much. And now, let's enjoy the show.
This boundary's here for a reason. So if you are enabling behavior, if you're giving that musty, dusty, crusty cousin money, where does that come from on a deeper level? Oh, because he had a really hard life and I've always been the more responsible one in my family. So I feel I have to cater to him and all this. Now we're getting to the root of it.
The SelfHype Podcast.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the SelfHype Podcast. It's your host, Eli Vasquez, brought to you by Chobo Studios. And this week's going to be a good one. We're talking boundaries. That's right, boundaries. I know you see it all over these digital streets, but these are going to be some things about boundaries that you haven't heard before. In a personal development lens, we're going to talk about the 3-act structure of boundaries, and it's going to help you out a whole lot in terms of love, dating, relationships, and your own personal wellness. Because if you don't feel you deserve to set a boundary and there's no reinforcement, the boundary is useless. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to have a good time. And if you love this show, you're like, Eli, I love you so much. Give it a good rating. Share it with your friend. Share it with your ex-boyfriend. Share it with your mama, whoever. And let's get it. It's such an important thing to discuss and talk about. But I feel like there's this 3-parter that no one talks about enough about boundaries. You hear about like, oh, you got to set boundaries. Oh, you got to set boundaries. Oh, you have to speak your mind. You have to speak your truth. You have to set boundaries. And also with boundaries, you have to set it in every capacity. Not only love, dating, relationships. I'm talking family. I know y'all got that musty, dusty cousin who always comes crawling in asking for money. And if you feel bad and you keep giving it to him, you're enabling his bad habits of fantasy league football and casinos. And also, he's not growing. And you're not respecting not only yourself, you're not respecting him. So we're going to dive into not only why boundaries are important. Obviously, this is why the episode and we're talking about it. But we're going to dive into the more mental philosophy and personal wellness side of it, and why it's necessary. This is something I deeply work with my clients. We actually do like 2 weeks of work in this, of just this boundary work, because I think there's so much more in terms of just saying, you got to set a boundary, set a boundary, set a boundary, set a boundary. First off, you have to do the mental work of discovering what the boundary even is, but also like, where does the boundary come from? I think that's a significant part that not a lot of people talk about either, is where does the boundary come from? And I think that comes from a deeper space of this boundary is here for a reason. So if you are enabling behavior, if you're giving that musty, dusty, crusty cousin money, where does that come from on a deeper level? So, oh, because he had a really hard life and I've always been the more responsible one in my family. So I feel I have to cater to him and all this. Now we're getting to the root of it. You have to understand the why of the boundary before you even set it. And I think that will give you a deeper motivation and purpose versus everything else. And it's checking yourself. Let's not get it twisted. Setting boundaries is you checking yourself. Setting boundaries is your own red flags. And I know people don't like to hear that. Like, nah, daddy, I want to talk about him. I want to talk about baby daddy. I want to talk about, my ex. I want to talk about all that. I'm setting boundaries because they're red flags. Nah, girl, you're setting boundaries because you lacked. And that lack and that enabling was red flags. So we have to get to that nitty gritty in terms of where does that come from in our hearts, in our soul, in our spirit? Why is this boundary here and where does it come from? And honestly, we got to think of it in the long term too, of we're setting this boundary because it did not serve us in the past, right? These actions or enabling or inaction, that's a whole other thing. Boundaries, we think is action. Nah, boundaries a lot of time is inaction. So these are things that did not serve us before that we're now checking ourselves and holding ourselves accountable to better our lives going forward. And we got to see the big picture. What's the cost of inaction if we do not set these boundaries? Because I'm not going to be ranting off about boundaries and you're going to wake up tomorrow and he's going to text you and you're going to be like, okay, yeah, let's meet up in the Taco Bell parking lot. We'll make out or whatever. No, girl, well, you got to set some freaking boundaries. What's the cost of inaction? What's the cost of inaction? The cost of inaction of you disrespecting yourself and disrespecting other people and not staying true to you. What is the cost of inaction? And if it's love, dating, relationships, then really it's you never finding the right person, because these deeper whys, these deeper insecurities, these deeper somethings are in control of you. And you're lacking the discipline to set these boundaries for yourself. And you will never find the one you need. And I don't need nobody. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the person that you should be with versus what you're used to with your unhealed self. So the person you should be with is based on the boundaries that you set. Because listen, the number one question everyone asks me is like, how do I find a good guy? Eli, how do I find a good guy? How do I do it? How do I make it happen, Captain? Well, you're only as good. The men in your life is only as good as the boundaries you set. That's it. The boundaries you're set, the moments of effort you lay out, and all that. Because if you're open field, if you were a 24-hour McDonald's drive-through, anyone could come and get it for $1.99, then you're getting all the riffraff. But if you put a security system, a line, a cover charge, then that is going to dictate who's actually really wants it. But it all, again, is all those boundaries. Boundaries are just filters of your truth. Boundaries is you being in your truth. Boundaries is knowing who's really about it and who's not. Boundaries is what's going to get you to find the man you should be with versus not. And if you're struggle busting in terms of boundaries, then you should probably start practicing it in other elements outside of love and dating, because that's going to help you out a lot. So it's so crucial, because this is the crux of us being at our highest selves. And again, this is outside of love, dating, relationships. This is life. I'm talking work, coworker disrespecting you, boss disrespecting you. You got to set some boundaries. Your life, your friendships, your family, what have you, that musty, dusty, crusty cousin, Steven. We'll just call him Steven. Sorry for anyone who's Steven listening. So this is why it's crucial. And this is why it's important. And this is why we're talking about it. And again, this podcast is, again, love, dating. We have fun and jokes and all that. But it's really to get to the core of you. You need to be your best self today. And what actions correlate to that? That's all it is. I don't like fake it till you make it. I like being who you're meant to become today. What actions can I do today to encompass who I'm meant to become? Because that's my energy. You come look at me, you come listen to this podcast, boo-boo. I'm talking to you like I got a multi-7-figure brand. We going worldwide with it. I got Pitbull at SelfHype Con. That's the energy I'm giving you, because I'm acting who I'm meant to be today to get me there even faster. And love and dating is the exact same way. Why do I have to wait to be that person when I could just do it right now? And you're going to attract the people you need to get you there as well. So this is why it's crucial. It's like non-negotiable to set these things. But again, it's really important first to get to the core, that inner spirit of why these are even here. Oh, my dad, my parents, something traumatic, what have you. Once you know the reason, it's better to define and hold yourself accountable in terms of those boundaries. So that's the first homework of it. There's one thing to say, I'm not going to handle this, that, and the other. Well, at one point you did. And why did you? And then once you answer that, then we could get to work. So I'm going to talk about the 3 stages of boundaries. And again, I don't think this is discussed a lot. I talked about it on my a TikTok post. And I think it's like, I love it because obviously everyone knows about boundaries, but we get to like deeper, it's like a cheesy gordita crunch. They are layers. There are gooey, delicious layers in the game in terms of boundaries, and it comes to your own personal self. So we're going to break it down right now in terms of boundaries. Number 1, with the 3-step process.
What's up, y'all? Sorry to interrupt. I know you guys are enjoying the episode, but real quick, I want to tell you about the Patreon. You could join it, so many different perks, early access. You can even ask me a question that can even get on this show. So it's all patreon.com/selfhype. Check it out. Now, let's get back to it.
So we're going to break it down right now in terms of boundaries. Number 1, with the 3-step process, is actually creating a boundary. And we kind of talked about that already, but first off, set the boundary. Set it. Okay, I am not going to give people money that don't deserve it, that or takes advantage of me. I am not going to engage in toxic behavior or disrespectful action or disrespectful talk to me. I am not going to do these things that I used to allow anymore. Or if that does come up, I'm out. I'm emotionally, physically, spiritually out. I'm checking out. I'll love you from a distance, baby. I will like your posts. I will send you a couple emojis at best. But if you come at me with this ratchetness, it ain't going to happen. So that is setting those boundaries, which is like number one that everyone needs to talk about. But I think the other big thing that is not talked about enough is to actually enforce those boundaries. Because people know what they should do, and then people don't do it. Like, you're freaking out with your girls, having a good old time. You know damn well you got to talk to this man. You know damn well you got to let him know this isn't cool. You got to let him know I do not condone or feel safe and comfortable with you hollering at booty forward content creators. And I'm not going to let you manipulate me or gaslight me or say it's okay. Like, I'm putting my foot down in terms of this is a boundary for me. So, you know, but are you going to do it? When you're in that moment with him and he's standing across from you and he's on his phone and you're like, he's probably liking Sharice's booty clapping video. Like, you see, anxiety, right? That's a perfect moment, but you refrain. So it's really important to enforce because, girl, like a gate that ain't even set up yet, a gate that's already in the IKEA. If you have a boundary, it's like a wall in the IKEA box that you have yet to build. It ain't gonna do nothing. You got it, but it's just sitting there and getting dusty. So your boundaries are only as good as you enforce it. And if you don't, you're gonna get just run over and you're gonna feel worse because of it, because you know what you should do and you don't. You don't. Everyone knows what they should do, right? Like, and also you got to say it like everyone's a master at love, dating, relationship talk when it's not them. Like, you're at the club with your girls, you're at brunch or whatever. And your girl is saying, oh my God, this guy, he this and that and that and this. And you are ready to lay it down. You're like, listen, do this, this, and that, and that. You need to set some boundaries. You need to do this, this, and this. You need to do that, that, and that. And you're just the Yoda with the hoop earrings, just living your best life, just laying it down in terms of spit. But then the next week, you're in your struggle bus and you don't know how to, you know how to get out of it, but you can't. And that's a psychological thing. That's a fear response. That's where anxiety comes in. That's where all that comes in. Because this goes to my third point of you have to feel you deserve to enforce those boundaries. That's really what it is. You got to feel you deserve it. And I think that's where the real personal development comes in, right? Like, that's where the real like sense of self comes in, is like, okay, I know what I need to do in setting this boundary. I know that I need to enforce it, but there's this whole other part of it is that I need to feel I deserve to enforce it. Because a lot of people let themselves get like run over. Maybe you're a people pleaser. Maybe you had to be at a young age. Maybe you had to grow up way faster than you should have. Maybe you had a childhood that was a little unfair. And because of it, these are the things that happen. This is why I say we got to know our why. Because if we know our why of why this boundary is here, it gets a lot easier to hold ourselves accountable. So the deserving, I think, is the most crucial part. And that's what's going to get you to open up that IKEA box and set up that wall. You have to know that I will not stand for this anymore. I know that I am beautiful. I know that I am fantastic. I know that I matter. I know that I have gifts. And I know by not setting this boundary, that is gifts and me at my highest self that is not being received by the world and the people that deserve to receive them. That's really what it is. But that's the space you got to get yourself to. Because more often than not, we know. we know we need to do, and then we have to actually enforce it. But again, what's going to enforce it is knowing that we deserve to. And here's the thing. Say you're breaking up with somebody. Say you're trying to go no contact. And more often than not, the guy is not respecting those boundaries. You guys said, I'm going no contact. If anything, he hurt you, right? And he's going no contact, and he's breaking the no contact rules. And you're trying to heal, you're trying to do all that, and it's easy to blame him. It is easy to blame him. Well, he's texting me, Eli. He's reaching out to me, Eli. He sent me a cake with my face on it, Eli. So what do you want me to do? Girl, you're a grown adult, or you're growing as an adult. You should be an adult if you're listening to this podcast. But that's what it is. I don't care what he does. What I care about is how you enable that. I don't care what he does after the breakup. I don't care that he's texting you. I don't care that he's hitting you up. I don't care if he's sending you cakes with your face on it. What I care about is what boundaries you're setting for yourself. Because it's your journey. You're the main character. He's just a side character in that, and that chapter's over. That's last season. So it's really up to you of how you hold yourself accountable. And if you break those boundaries and you text him back, or you go to his house, or you guys, whatever, like, bump bellies or what have you, like, it goes against your highest self and where you need to be. And you're not enforcing those boundaries. And it's really important to take responsibility of it, because you have to feel you deserve to, because you're disrespecting yourself. You're literally disrespecting yourself because you feel you don't deserve better. Oh, okay, I deserve to be in a situation where this man blatantly said, and I'm just going with examples here, but if this really hits you, this is a great episode for you if this is what you're going through. Yeah, what I'm saying is, like, this man broke my heart, and he doesn't want to get back with me. He's just saying what's up and breaking boundaries. Like, every time I said, I don't want you to hit me up, and he does, that's an action of disrespect, and I accept that, and then I condone of it because I feel I deserve to, or hope maybe he changes his mind. But do I even want to be with someone like that who doesn't really want me? Do I even really want to be with someone who is like, sees me as less than, as the beautiful, precious gift that I am, that I know that I have within myself? But the thing is, do I know I have that in myself? Do I? Because if you did, we wouldn't even be in this situation. But this is why I say different actions create different results. And this is why these boundaries happen. Like, this is literally it. And by setting the boundary, you're not only staying in your truth, but you're going to know who's really there for you. But this is where we get to the core of it. This boundary is healing. This boundary is a healing action that I don't think enough people talk about, is that by you knowing the deeper why, you are healing and catering to a younger version of yourself, because that person didn't have the strength or understanding and was very hurt. But now you're in a position to set this boundary. Now you are strong enough to set this boundary. Now you are strong enough to cater to that younger version of yourself. Because usually it's so hard for us to get wrapped up in our brain of like, oh my God, okay, I'm just like, well, it's okay, fine, I'll just hit him up. It's just me. No, girl. It's your younger version that you're disrespecting too. And by taking ourselves out of it and catering to someone else, someone that is more helpless or doesn't have the tools, that is going to ignite a response of caretaking, of defensiveness, of a little bit of anger. Let's get a little angry with it. Like, hey, I got to set these boundaries. I got to let these people take advantage of me. So it's really important to really dive into and understand that there's a kid in the house, and that's who you're protecting with this boundary. Take yourself out of it. Get your head out your butt and understand that you deserve to enforce this boundary, because you're doing it for you and every younger version of yourself that wasn't able to. And these are the moments. If you're listening to my voice right now, if you're listening to this podcast, this is the moment. This is the moment that everything changes, but it's up to you to allow it. And it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to feel bad. You're going to get upset because guess what? That's growth. That's good anxiety. That's good fear. Because this is growth. Because you are stepping into a bigger world and you can't see the walls. You're not used to it. You don't even know where your feet are at. But this is a bigger world, setting that boundary. Because this is going to open you up to different people, different experiences, different mindset. Because once you set these boundaries, once you get used to setting this boundary, oh my God, you are unstoppable, boo-boo. You are unfreaking stoppable. I hope you just digest that for a second. But it starts today. It starts today. One day or day one. I'm a big Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson fan. I'm a big fan of his. He says that. I saw it on one of his videos. Like, I can't even cop. Like, I was like, yeah, that's me. That's a dope line. Yeah, that's what I came up now. That was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm a big Rock fan, WWE wrestler fan. But anyway, I digress. Because I will self-disclose. This was a struggle I had a lot. And it took growing up to really understand the patterns. And it took growing up to really understand that cost of inaction and how that was getting in the way of where my goals were personally, professionally, relationship-wise, and all that. And the second I saw like that little boy and I understood that he had to grow up really fast and he didn't have the traditional home and love and caretaking, and I understood how that correlated to me today. And once I saw that little boy hurt and scared, I was able to be in a position of power to take care of him. You ain't coming after him. Hell no, you ain't coming after him. So that put a fire under my butt to really hold myself accountable. Mind you, I'm an adult and I'm a more emotionally regulated. So if I have a boundary and someone breaks it, I'm not going to be like, you punched my younger self. Screw you. No. Okay. Well, I'm going to vocalize and say, yo, this is a boundary. You crossed it. I'm verbalizing to you that this is something I don't condone or I'm cool with. And I'm just saying that this is not sustainable for me, respectfully. And if the person respects me, we're Gucci. But if they don't, I know you're not my person. I know you're not my people. So I'm not saying I want you to grab an axe and start, getting after your ex-boyfriend and, messing up his car because he disrespected you, because your younger version self. What I'm saying in an emotionally regulatory way to verbalize those boundaries when they are broken, say it with clear understanding. And that is how we better connect with the people that we're with. Because, some people we're all doing our best here. So we could carry a little bit of grace, but once you tell someone this is the line in the sand, which is a big thing because people have boundaries internally, but they don't vocalize it because it's scary. And then you get upset when someone does something, but how are they supposed to know? So it's really important for you to stay in your maturity and in your logical sense and really do some breath work. If you don't know any breath work, Google it and put the line in the sand for people. And it's not in a threatening way. It's saying, I'm delivering this information to you because I love you. I'm delivering this information to you because I want you to respect me and I want to know that this could work. It's not saying, oh, it's this way or this way, that way or the highway. You better not do this or that's the gaga energy. You don't want that. And if you don't know what gaga is, it's like poop, Latino plug. So that's gaga energy. We don't want gaga energy. And you could respectfully say, and if they do keep crossing these boundaries, listen, we had this conversation maybe more than once. You know that this is really important to me, yet you couldn't do it. And this just shows to me that maybe you're a little more selfish. You don't even have to say this to him. You could just be like, yo, this ain't it. But clearly this is, you care more about yourself than respecting my boundaries and getting to know me on a deeper level. And that is the best way to really share it and just put a period at the end. And if they, oh, no, blah, 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 blah. Sure, give them another chance. Because at that point, you're just enabling behavior. At that point, then you're breaking those boundaries. You can maybe give someone, okay, fine, whatever. All right, I'll give you a second chance. But we clearly already had this conversation. They do it again. After that has to be it. Because you are then totally going against the boundary. And then not only that, you are then enabling their behavior. And not only that, that person then is losing respect for you. Because there's nothing more like you can't take someone seriously who tells you something and then does the opposite or then lets you. It's like, hey, we have a security system, or like, oh, there's a cover at the door at this nightclub, and then people get to just walk on in. Who's going to actually stop and pay $50 at the door if people are just walking on in? Nobody. So that's where enforcement comes in. So if there's a line in the sand of a conversation and they keep crossing it, that's disrespect. And that's how you know if someone's really there for you. And this is how we get to the meat and freaking potatoes of who's really there for us and who's not in terms of love, dating, relationships. Again, I will go back to it. Everyone always asks, how do I find a good guy? Do I go to the grocery store? Do I go to the church? Where do I go? Set boundaries. Because you could be saying hallelujah to the Lord and be with and the guy next to you is, he should have got a communion years ago. I'm surprised that his skin's not burning, because you don't know who people are. Just like the dude at the grocery store, he might be phenomenal. But the only way to know who's really there for you is you being the driver's seat of your life by setting the boundaries in place. And those boundaries are moments of effort, moments of respect for them to then take action or enact. A lot more often than not, the worst thing when it comes to dating is a lot of women in particular are just try to be their best selves, don't want to rock the boat, just want to be liked, just want the guy to like them. I'm not saying this is everybody, but more often than not, I'm just sharing that like it's okay to express who you are in your most authentic self, as long as it's within curiosity, flirtiness, fun, and respect and directiveness. That's okay. Because this is the only way we find our person. That's it. The boundaries you set and the moment's efforts you present will show. It is like an obstacle course for men of, okay, you're really about it, this is it. And if you're falling over and you can't even get through the tire swing or whatever, that ain't it. Or you could just have a clear path through, and then you're wondering, oh, this guy doesn't like me, or he doesn't respect me, or he doesn't do this, that, and the other. So I say all that to say that you're allowed to take up space and you'll be just fine. But it's really important to know where these boundaries come from, enforce the damn boundaries, and then know that you deserve to. You freaking deserve to, because there is a younger version of yourself that ain't getting what they need to receive. And if you are struggling and you're having anxiety, I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared to do this. I need you to calm down. I need you to breathe. Do some breath work. Do some intentional breathings in through the nose, out through the mouth. Let's calm our emotions, get to a regulatory space, get to our logical side, and sit down and remind ourselves, what's the cost of inaction if I don't set this? And feel the negative emotions of that cost of inaction. And that will prompt you and motivate you to actually set it. Because there's a beautiful life waiting for you. And it's just up to you today to set something intentional for yourself. That's really what it is. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the SelfHype podcast. I appreciate you so much. Brought to you by Trovo Studios. I'm just so, I'm in awe. Like, the guests we've had were freaking phenomenal. The guests we're gonna have, oh my God. These are people I looked up to, like, with the guests we have. And then with Chobo and Indy and Victoria and what we're doing here, I'm just so in awe. And you guys receiving the content and being a part of the Patreon and being a part, I do not take this lightly at all. At freaking all. So this is just a thank you. And again, if you're interested in coaching, if you're interested in joining my 8-week coaching program and joining different programs that I have, everything is the link in the bio. I would love to work with you. And if you want to join our Patreon community, and there's so many perks and benefits where I answer your questions and we go on live calls and we just interact and shake our butts digitally, check it out. All the links are in the below. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time.
The SelfHype Podcast.